if we could have just lost in normal fashion like a normal team, it wouldn't be so fucking brutal today. But we had to pull a Texas and do Texas things. We had to get down to the fucking 11-yard line and have 4 shots at the end zone and still not get it. I mean, I literally turned on a light in the room because of my dead dog, and I told her to bring us back when they had the ball, and then the Washington running back got hurt.
Yeah.
They had to call a timeout. They ran into the fucking kicker, kick catch interference. I mean, it was a comedy of errors by Washington, and we get down to the 11, and then motherfucking Quinn Ewers and Steve Sarkisian. What was the call? First of all, and I know you said it during the game.
I was laughing.
What was the call on first down?
I don't know, but let's go ahead and get back. Let's talk of the important point here. Wolfie almost brought the Longhorns back. She broke the Washington, literally right when you turn the light on, the Washington's running back's leg broke. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I thought they go to 25 seconds and continue to run the clock. Nope, the clock stopped completely. It's the only thing that kept Texas in the game. And then Numbnuts runs into the fucking return man. And I'm like, oh my God, they're going to, like, in college football with that much time, it's almost like, unless you turn the ball over or take a sack, you're guaranteed to get, like, some chances at the end zone, pretty much. Like, it's just going to happen. And so I got down there, and then, Sark throwing that little motion in the man back to the quarterback, and then throwing, like, a little wheel route that I don't know what, or well, it wasn't even really that. It was just a little like pass to the flat. Yeah.
We had a first and,
mind-boggling.
We had a 1st and 10 at the 11, and we got 2 shots at the end zone, and only one of them was a catchable ball. That's how crazy that was. When we got down to the 15, as down as I was like, we're gonna score. I kept saying, I was like, we're gonna score. This is gonna happen, because in that moment, I was listening to SVP at the end of the game, and he was like talking to Herb Street, and he said it just felt like Texas was going to score, because usually when that happens and a team's on their heels and all these things have gone wrong, not to mention the fact that Washington's secondary has been atrocious all year, and you're having to throw at the end zone, then you add to insult another thing that we didn't even mention. In the last, we had 2 or 3 plays where their number 1 corner wasn't even in the game. He got hurt on that play right after Texas got it down to the 28 on the Whittington throw. Instead of spiking it, which was stupid, by the way, and cost them 4 or 5 seconds, and they couldn't get a good play call in, he threw a bomb into the end zone, and Muhammad, their best corner, got hit in the head and had to come out for 3 or 4 plays. And that we basically have now a depleted secondary, a bad secondary, and we have plenty of shots, and we don't even get shots at the end zone. He has the guy out of the game, and he throws the little screen pass or swing pass, whatever you want to call it. I mean, not to mention, if the guy gets tackled in bounds there, the game is over. That's the only other thing. What is your thinking there? He's going to score on that play?
I think that he figured he was going to get 5 or 6 easy yards and then get out of bounds and then give yourself 3 more shots from a little bit closer to the end zone. I don't know why he did it. That's the only thing I can think of. Obviously, he's not thinking he's going to score on that play. So I guess that was his thinking. Yeah, obviously don't agree with it there. Yeah, it seemed like Texas was going to get down there and score. I mean, that's typically what happens. Even in that Alabama game, Alabama-Michigan, we'll get to it. But when they got the 4th and 2 on kind of that, blown coverage, no one took the running back out of the backfield, you just figured out, well, Michigan's going to score now. It just seems to always happen that way. You definitely thought Texas was going to score down there. Too bad the pass wasn't better on the 4th down play. But, yeah, don't really like the first down play call, and you would hope that one of those really good Texas receivers could make a play on that bad secondary. So it was unfortunate.
It was brutal. And Quinn Ewers was horrific most of the night till the end of the game. The first half, he was 9 of 18 for 97 yards. I mean, look, I'm biased towards my teams. That's a true statement. However, early in the year, I liked Michael Penix. I really did. I've always liked him. I liked him when he was at Indiana. But then I watched him play in that Oregon game, and I just didn't like what I saw. And then I didn't like what I saw in the game after, and the game after, and the game after. He just didn't look like he was that great. But I will hand it to him last night. He was throwing some really good balls. He completely outplayed Quinn Ewers. They were the better team for most of the night. That's the truth of the matter. The fact is, Texas had a better defense going in. But Washington's defense made some plays. They forced 2 big fumbles. That turned the game, too. Texas was going down to score and cut it to 6 much earlier than 9 minutes to go. There was like 14 or 13 minutes to go in the game, and Jalen Blue goes down and fumbles the ball, literally just drops the ball. I mean, it was just...
That was the big one to me. I mean, I think if they score there, it's probably... At that point, with Washington taking their foot off the gas, it's a 50-50 game from that point if they score.
It is.
Cut it to 6. Yeah, I don't know how you just dropped the ball there, but he did. So it
was ridiculous.
It wasn't pretty, and it was funny because when you're watching the play from the camera angle, you thought he was either down or you just didn't see him fumble at all. But then as soon as, like, both Washington players are screaming, pointing the other way, I was like, I told your dad, I told Big Dog in there, I was like, I think he fumbled that. And he was like, no way. And then it shows the other angle, and he just dropped the ball. Like, and I mean, it was clear as day. It wasn't even close to being down. It was just, ball came out. And you made an interesting point about the recovery there because originally I saw that linebacker or whatever, White Washington get jumped on the ball. I don't know what number he was. And he had it for like a brief second, but probably not long enough to, be possession and to, be granted possession of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it like right away, but you were watching the play further. And then there's like a scrum for the ball, and the ball's just sitting there. And then about 2 or 3 seconds later, Washington guy like comes and just pulls it out of the pile and grabs it. So I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know if that's like a super clear recovery. Obviously, the officials thought it was, and that's kind of ticky-tacky stuff looking at it, that. But it was a good point that you made watching it. I was like, you're right. There wasn't like an immediate clear recovery.
There wasn't. That's the rule. It's got to be an immediate clear recovery, and there wasn't. And here's the thing: when the guy pulled it out, there really wasn't a view of like, did somebody already have possession? That was my issue with it. It's like, okay, you have like 3 guys with their hands around it. You can't tell. There's people laying on the ball. Does somebody have it? Does somebody not? And then the guy comes in. Somebody might have had the ball, and he comes in and rips it out. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody didn't have it, and I just didn't like that they, like, it was a pretty quick review. They, like, went in, looked at it, they're like, okay, obviously it's a fumble, and it kind of felt like, to me, it's like, okay, we fucked up because it was such an obvious fumble that they didn't call it a fumble on the field, and then they're like, well, if that played out, Washington would have got the ball regardless.
Well, that was the weird thing about it is, they blew it dead right away, like, that it wasn't a fumble, like,
right.
They stopped the play. And I don't think anybody had it under the pile, per se, when the guy came in and got it. It looked pretty simple that no one had it when he grabbed it, but it technically shouldn't matter because they ruled it not a fumble on the field, although it was a fumble, obviously. And then it took, it seems like at least 3 to 4 seconds after the fact, after they already blew it dead, that he goes in and gets it.
I just don't know how that's immediate and clear.
In the NFL, I've seen that happen before where it's like, the other team definitely gets the ball, but it's not an immediate recovery.
Right.
So, I don't know. That kind of sucked for Texas. I don't know if I could necessarily say that was a call that went against them, but obviously the penalties, there was several more penalties called on Texas in the game than Washington. So
yeah, it did not seem like it was. It felt very lopsided in that. I also will say, and I think we're going to get to this when we talk about the preview of the national title, but as good as Penix, looked in some of those throws, I thought that if Texas lost, that they were going to get exploited in the secondary. And yes, Washington threw all over them. That Penix had 430 yards passing. However, a lot of their big plays in the game, when you look at it, they were very, they were like an inch or 2 away from being knocked down. Like a lot of the plays had good coverage, and the defender just didn't get his head around and knock the ball down. Like I'm talking like there was a 70-yard or 60-yard one down the middle where literally, I believe it was number 6 for the Longhorns, doesn't turn around, or he puts his hand up and tries to hit the guy's arms, and it misses him by you can't even see the difference between his hand and the ball. There was another one where on a touchdown, the Texas defender actually tips the ball. It goes off of the defender's hands, off of the receiver's hands, and then he catches it in the end zone. So it was like every bounce was going Washington's way.
Yeah, that was the real lucky one there, that the double bounce one. I will say that on the other throws, great throws, whatever, you are right that the Texas defenders, I would say, actually, weirdly enough, even though they got kind of torched, did an admirable job, but they got to get their head back around and make a play. They're running with these receivers, and at the last second, at least put a hand up or something. It was nothing. They're just running with the guy.
Yeah.
And Penix was throwing dimes, but I give credit to Washington in the fact that look, when you have a distinctive advantage on the outside with receivers, just throw it up and let them make a play. And that's what they did. I mean, and credit to them for making those plays. Like I said, I wish the Texas DBs could have got their head back around and, maybe picked one of those passes off, because literally, you're right. If he is turned around, he's got at least a 50-50 chance of the ball. But Washington said, look, we can't turn around and just run the ball against Texas. It's not going to work. But we do have an advantage on the outside, and these guys are better than their cornerbacks, so we're just going to throw it up, and it worked. I don't know why more teams don't do that when they have an advantage on the outside, So,
yeah. I mean, they have
it's kind of like when we watched that, that backup quarterback for USC come in and play against Louisville. They're just throwing the ball all over the yard because the receivers, are much better than the defensive backs, and they were killing them. So
no, I will say in college, it's much different because cornerbacks and DBs for the most part just aren't that elite and they're not that polished. And so, like, I remember back a couple years ago when Caleb Williams came in for Spencer Rattler in that OU-Texas Red River rivalry, and OU was down, and literally I was so frustrated because it was the same type of thing. Like, Caleb Williams was literally just throwing jump balls to his receivers, and they were catching it, and Texas couldn't get their head around and turn the ball, knock the ball down or get an interception, because in college it's just hard to do that. They're just not polished on the outside like they are in the NFL. Much, much different. And that's what Washington did. They averaged 11 yards per pass in the game, and they were hitting explosives all night long. Even, like, on the last drive before, or I guess it was the second to last drive for Washington, where essentially they were up by 6, and it was a third down and like 4 or 5, and Texas has a chance to get off the field and get the ball back with like 4 minutes to go. And at that point, if they get the ball back with 5 or 4 minutes to go, they're only down 6. And I think it was like a wheel rat on the outside, and they just threw the ball up. I mean, and knocked, that's all game long. It came down to that type of thing, and it worked. And I thought Texas at the end, that's what I thought Texas did wrong. At the end, like I said, there was one catchable ball, and it was going to be really tough to catch. To me, it was the last ball. The other 3, one was too far out of bounds. The other one, he literally threw away the second to last play, and it hit. Actually, the guy caught it with the sideline ball boy.
Save 1 second.
He caught it with 1 second and stopped the clock.
Thought it was going to be another Texas-Nebraska ending.
That's exactly how it felt, where we ended up winning the game. We hit the ground with 1 second. Good old Colt McCoy. But, like at that point, you have guys like A.D. Mitchell's a 6'4" receiver. He just went up and mossed somebody on the previous couple drives. Just throw it up and let him have a chance at it. And then I want to say one more thing, and if you want to add anything before we move on, the last play of the game was so frustrating to me because I understand, like, I go back and look at it. Quinn was throwing with a little bit of anticipation. I understand that, but it wasn't like the pocket was massively collapsing at the moment. But if he throws that ball, 1.5 feet lower, or he just throws a dart in there, like a comeback, like it seemed like it was kind of a comeback route in a way. The Washington defender played behind the whole way, I guess, so he could maybe break on the ball, which is what he did. But if Quinn lasers one in there, that's a touchdown. I mean, he was open. It was A.D. Mitchell. He was open. If he throws a lower ball in there, there's a very, very good chance that is a touchdown, and the game is over. Texas wins on the final play. He throws a lob to the outside, and it's just like you gave the DB so much time to break on the ball. Nobody's ever calling pass interference there, but he did launch himself with his left hand over to knock the ball down. That's never getting called there. I understand that. But Quinn was bad all night, and it came down to Quinn and Sark, and both of them shit their pants. And I said, I think Texas is going to win, but the one way they lose, and I repeated this last night, was if Sark throws up on himself and if Quinn Ewers throws up on himself. And both things happen. You add in there 2 fumbles, and the result is you lose the game to a Washington team that, to me, they were the better team last night. That was clear. I don't think they're the better football team if you play them if they play 10 times. Kalen DeBoer outcoached Sark. Michael Penix outplayed Quinn Ewers, and they won the game because of that.
Yep. I mean, I agree. I would agree with all those things. I think if you played like we always say, a 7-game series like they do in the NBA or something like that, I think Texas would probably prevail. But, I mean, I don't know. Washington, give them all the credit. Receivers made plays. And like they call those 50-50 balls, but when you're throwing up balls to college receivers against college DBs, they're more like 80-20 balls. And not to mention, you're 10 times more likely to get interference on the defense than you are on the offense. So it's just, that's what they knew they could exploit. They did. Credit to them. Won the game, and that's,
I mean, on the biggest play on the final drive, Texas threw a bomb to Jordan Whittington, and it was just the exact same type of thing. Throw up a one-on-one ball, and he went and made a play. He actually pushed off on the play, and they didn't call it because they're not going to call it there. So it's like, just do that. They have Jordan Whittington 6'5". They have A.D. Mitchell 6'4". It just made no sense.
And I think the last play to Mitchell in the end zone there was essentially like, we're here. We're going to throw like a fade up to our best player, a jump ball, if you will. And that's why Quinn put too much air under it. It was never one of those plays, in my opinion, which you look at it, of course. If he throws a dart to the pylon, it's a touchdown there. But it was always like, hey, I'm throwing a jump ball to you. It's going to be one-on-one. Go make a play. Right. And that's what happened. He obviously threw it.
He threw it too wide.
He threw it wide right instead of, he had to focus on keeping his feet in and, battling with the defensive back. Like you said, he jumped on his shoulder. Never going to call it in that situation. So credit to him for making a play, and Texas back to the drawing board. It'll be interesting to see if I think most Texas fans are hoping Ewers leaves and Arch just steps in there.
Yes.
I assume that's where your stance on it is.
That is my stance. Even if
we'll see.
I think probably we would be worse next year, but in the long run we're going to be better because obviously you have a guy who's going to be your third-year starter who's played in won a Big 12 championship, played in a college football playoff. He's probably going to be better than Arch Manning. But to me, you start him, hopefully Quinn leaves. Arch gets to have 1 year of development, and by his second year, now we're a contender again. And then you never know. This is a different era, and I understand we've talked about how Arch has come from, a much lower level of competition. But this is a different era where it's not unrealistic that a freshman could come in, really do a good job, and especially now with the 12-team playoff, be in that playoff at the end of the year. Texas has enough talent around them. I don't know exactly how many guys we're losing to the NFL, and I know we haven't lost too many to the portal who have been key pieces, but I do hope that
I think they should just, if they think there's any chance that Arch is going to transfer. If they do, they'll have a feeling on it. They'll know essentially. Right. Then you just, it's time to move on and go to Arch. If Arch does say, "Hey, look, I'm staying, and I really don't mind sitting behind him another year," which could be the case. I mean, listen, dude, he's being groomed by the Manning brothers,
right.
So they're gonna have an idea. It's already set in stone what it is. So trust me, the plan is if Cam, they already have a plan. If Cam's coming back, we're transferring, or if you're fine sitting there, I mean. It's already been decided, so we'll see what happens. So they'll let Texas know, too. I'm pretty sure they'll be up front with them, and they'll say, Sark, look, if you want to keep him, he needs to start next year.
Right.
And it's kind of one of those situations. So, and especially with the 12-team playoff next year, I think you just go ahead and go with Arch anyway and hope to get in it. And,
right.
You're probably not going to win the national championship next year anyway. So why not? It's your first year in the SEC. They have to go to Michigan, right? Next year?
They have to go to Michigan.
Second week of the year.
And they play, is it Alabama too? No, I don't think they play Alabama.
Whatever. But hopefully 2 losses and they sneak into the playoffs, but no, that's probably the goal.
I agree.